Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's event. The world's new opportunities, China's new journey, and the 5th China-UK Economic Trade Forum. The event is hosted by the China Chamber of Commerce in the UK, CCC UK, as well as being supported by the Chinese Embassy here in the UK. CCC UK has been organising the China-UK Economic and Trade Forums for the past 4 years, and for this year is pleased to be holding an in-person event. Today, we're joined by nearly 300 leading figures from the political, business, academic and other sectors to participate in our event. But before we hear from our speakers this afternoon, CCC UK would first like to show you a short video to learn more about their achievements over the years.
2022 carries the tide of a new journey. For half a century, we have witnessed a remarkable friendship that has brought together the people of two countries. We have shared, cooperated, and united since the establishment of China and the UK diplomatic relations. China has now entered a new era of economic development, promoting high standard opening up and providing opportunities to the world. At the beginning of this extraordinary journey, we tended the seeds of the East in the soils of the West. Chinese enterprises have grown from dozens to tens of thousands, rising with the sun, intertwining into communities, and growing with the country. Yesterday's sweat has become today's fruit. From cooperation in traditional industries to working together with communities across the UK to hitting carbon neutrality targets, China-UK cooperation have stepped up and strived to reach for higher dreams. As a pioneer in this journey, the China Chamber of Commerce in the UK has always been committed to promoting China-UK economic and trade cooperation, supporting the continuous development of Chinese enterprises in the UK and guiding them to fulfill their social responsibilities. Since its birth, for 2 decades, members of our chamber have been deeply involved in the UK and myriad of projects, covering countless areas such as finance, technology, communication, energy, infrastructure, trade, and many more. This is not only a journey of growth, but a journey of dreams, small and big, individual and collective. We have grasped opportunities that have risen and steadily moved forward as one. Today, Chinese enterprises are looking beyond London. By actively responding to the calls of the levelling up agenda, we have made outstanding contributions to UK's economic and social developments. Chinese enterprises have tapped effectively into the UK's green growth, making important achievements in battery storage, clean fuels, offshore wind power, wind turbine manufacturing, and renewable energy. An art cannot sail on its own. The China Chamber of Commerce in the UK will uphold its mission and work together with its members to preserve the work of our past and promote the dreams of our future. The Chamber will continue to engage in bilateral relations and encourage deeper cooperation between all sectors across the UK and China. With the support of our countries and help of our people, we are ready to join hands and embrace what the future holds.
I'd now like to outline the programme for today's events. In just a moment, we'll be welcomed by Hong Wen-Zhang, Chairman of China Chamber of Commerce in the UK, and who also is General Manager of the Bank of China London branch. Mr. Feng will be followed by 3 keynote speeches for our first session, China's New Journey, World's New Opportunities. Firstly, by Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the UK, His Excellency Zhang Zhuling, followed by Sir Sherard Cooper-Coles, Chairman of China-Britain Business Council and Group Head of Public Affairs, HSB Holdings plc, and finally by Stephen Perry, Chairman of the 48 Group Club. Following the opening speeches, there'll be a 20-minute break before we start our second session. Firstly, the second sessions will be the 5th China-UK Economic Trade Forum. Again, we will hear from Chairman Fang. Then we have 2 business panel discussions, regional strategies and opportunities across the UK, and China-UK actions in pursuit of net zero. We will conclude the forum with a closing address by the Right Honourable the Lord O'Neill of Gatley, Chair of Northern Gridstone. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our host, Fang Wenjian, Chairman of CCC UK and General Manager of the Bank of China London branch, to give the welcome address.
Your Excellency Ambassador, Chairman Perry, Sir Sherard, distinguished speakers, panelists and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the China Chamber of Commerce in the UK, I would like to extend our warmest welcome to all of you. Thank you all for joining us today at the 5th China-UK Economic and Trade Forum. I'm really overwhelmed to see that all the 300 seats has been filled today. And I know from my team, even in the last minute, I think we have some late request to join has to be turned down because of the full booking today. And I'm surprised we even have some people standing today. And so thank you all for your participation. And that shows how eager we are to come back to our normal life. Over the past 4 years, we have established the forum as one of the showpiece events for promoting China-UK economic relationship. Even during the pandemic, we have managed to continue our forum through online events. But for 2 years, we have not been able to meet properly in person. 2 years is a long time, especially in the UK, where 4 months or perhaps even a few weeks can make a huge difference. I think even, for example, even the ambassador himself probably didn't expect that he would come back from his business trip in Beijing to face a new government here. But finally, we're back to normal, I think. We are back to life again. We do hope this in-person event will provide a good platform for you to meet and speak to each other face-to-face, something which we all missed so much during the pandemic. I believe this year's gathering has a special significance as it takes place at such a critical and historical moment for both our countries. Given my role as the chair of CCUK, many friends ask me, Mr. Fang, where are we heading in terms of China-UK relationship? And this is, of course, a tough question for me to answer, but an inevitable and very important one for our businesses, our families and friends, and our future generations. I hope a forum such as this will help us to reflect and discuss major issues that have an impact on this important relationship. Earlier this year, we celebrated the remarkable milestone of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of an ambassadorial-level diplomatic relationship between China and the UK. The ties between China and the UK are long, deep, and profound. Tremendous steps forward have been made over the past 50 years. We have been working together in so many areas, from combating the pandemic and saving lives, to taking joint action in support of COP26 and tackling climate change, from creating jobs, investing in local workforces, to contributing to our local communities through CSR initiatives, etc. Based on our latest survey, we are pleased to note that Chinese companies in the UK appear to be recovering well from the challenges of COVID. 74% of companies reported stable to growing revenues in 2021 compared with the previous year. and around 50% of the companies describe themselves as profitable in 2021, and over 73% of respondents have even reinvested all or majority of their UK profits back into the British economy. I'm immensely proud of the efforts we have made to promote our relationship, which is highly complementary and mutually beneficial. And we place a high value on continuing to foster even closer ties between our two great nations. Today, we are very honored to have Ambassador Zheng to join us at such a propitious moment. He has just returned from attending the 20th CPC National Congress in Beijing. I'm confident that he will help all of us better understand and explain China's new plans and strategies in the new era, and what it means for the UK and the outside world, and provide fresh insight into the future of the China-UK relationship. So I will be directing all your difficult questions to the Ambassador to answer. Without further ado, I want to thank you all again for your support and wish the forum a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Fung. It is clear that CCC UK has achieved a great deal on behalf of its members and has ambitious plans under China's new journey. Thank you for getting us started today on such a positive note and setting the scene for today's gathering. Now, we are honoured this afternoon to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Zheng, who is a strong supporter and promoter of UK economic cooperation and trade, and he'll bring us up to date on the many developments in China. Ambassador.
Chairman Fang Jiang, Mr. Stephen Perry, Sir Shella, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to attend this 5th China-UK Economic and Trade Forum. I would like to thank our host, the China Chamber of Commerce in the UK, for the kind invitation. First of all, on behalf of the Chinese Embassy in the UK, I wish to express our congratulations for the consumption of this forum. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks to the CCC UK for the great work you have done over the years. I would like to thank CCC UK's sponsors and supporting organizations as well. The China-Britain Business Council, the 48 Group Club, the Confederation of British Industry, the City of London Corporation, the British Chamber of Commerce in China, the Great Britain China Center, the Institute of Directors, as well as entrepreneurs and guests who have worked so hard to promote China-UK cooperations over the years. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has entered a period of turbulence and changes. The historical trends of peace, development, mutual benefit, and cooperation is certainly unstoppable. But in the meantime, human society does face unprecedented challenges. Chairman Fang referred to the fact that a lot had happened over the past weeks here in the UK. It is also true to this whole world. How can we properly respond to changes in the world? This is an urgent question facing all nations. Our host of the forum has asked me to talk about the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. I'm more than happy to do that because it will help to a certain degree for you to better understand China and grasp the trends of China's developments and the future of China-UK relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, the 20th CPC National Congress is indeed a very important meeting convened at a critical time as China embarks on a new journey of the new era to build a modern socialist country in all respects and advances towards our second centenary goal. It is a Congress upholding high the banner, pulling strength and forging ahead in unity. The most important achievement of the Congress is the election of a new central leadership with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. The election has carried forward and practiced democracy throughout its whole process, and its outcome reflects the common desire and the consensus of the entire party and the people of the whole country. General Secretary Xi Jinping's report to the Congress is a political declaration and a program of actions for the party to rally all the Chinese people and lead them in achieving new success of building socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era. It is also the most important source for people outside China to gain a correct understanding and reading of China's future developments. So today, I would like to highlight the following 5 key phrases, which I think can best capture the essence of the Congress. Now, the first set of phrases is great transformation, great transformation. The Congress has given a comprehensive review of our work in the past 5 years and the great achievements in the past decade. It pointed out that in the 5 years since the 19th CPC National Congress, a period that has been truly momentous and extraordinary. The Party Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, has pursued a strategy of national rejuvenation and global changes of a magnitude not seen in 1 century. The CPC has led the people in solving a great number of problems that have long gone unresolved, secured many accomplishments that hold great significance for the future, and achieved impressive advances in the cause of the party and the country. It has been stressed at the Congress that the past 10 years marked 3 major events of profound historical significance, and that is, we embrace the centenary of the CPC, we usher in a new era of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and we eradicated absolute poverty and finished building a moderately prosperous society in all respects, thus completing the first centenary goal. The Congress has also summarized the 16 aspects of the historical achievements in the past decade. These are feats of fundamental significance made on all fronts, feats that have brought tangible benefits to the Chinese people, and feats that have astonished the world. Now let me give you some examples. We have lifted nearly 100 million rural residents out of poverty. China's GDP increased from 53.9 trillion yuan to 114.4 trillion yuan. Its share in the world economy rose from 11.3% to 18.5%. China has remained the world's second largest economy, and its per capita GDP has expanded from 39,800 yuan to 81,000 yuan. China ranks first in the world in terms of grading upward, and people's life expectancy has reached 78.2 years. China is the world's largest manufacturing country and the biggest commodity trading country. The Chinese people now enjoy skies that are bluer, waters that are clearer, and lands that are cleaner. The great transformation over the past 10 years of the new era marks a milestone in the history of the party, of the People's Republic of China, of the reform and opening up, of the development of socialism, and of the development of the whole Chinese nation. The CPC has tempered itself through revolution and grown stronger. The Chinese people are filled with a stronger sense of history and initiative. The rejuvenation of the Chinese nation is now on an irreversible course. And scientific socialism is brimming with renewed vitality in the 21st century in China. That's the first set of key phrases I want to share with you. Second, the key to China's success. The second set of key phrases. This is how we understand why China has accomplished a lot over the past 10 years, and it's something that will continue to guide China in the future. The Congress has given an in-depth analysis of the great achievements in the new era and reached a common understanding that at a fundamental level, we owe China's great achievements in the new era to the strong leadership of the party's Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, and to the sound guidance of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism and China's characteristics for the new era. History fully shows that the success of the country, the success of a political party, needs strong leadership at the top, as well as the good guidance of well-conceived theories. General Secretary Xi Jinping has been the core of the party's Central Committee and the whole party. The election of Comrade Xi Jinping as the General Secretary of the new Central Committee at this Congress, reflects the common will and aspiration of the whole party, the military and the Chinese people. Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is Marxism of contemporary China and of the 21st century. It embodies the best of Chinese culture and ethos of this era as well. The Party Congress has also made major achievements in theoretical innovation. It pointed out that we must integrate the basic tenets of Marxism with China's specific realities and define Chinese traditional culture. It laid out important principles that we must adhere over the long term. That is, we must put the people first. We must maintain self-confidence and stand on our own feet. We must uphold fundamental principles and break new ground. We must adopt a problem-oriented approach. And we must apply systems thinking. And we must maintain a global vision. As we advance the course of the party and the country on the new journey, the establishment of Comrade Xi Jinping's core position in leadership and of the guiding role of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is of decisive significance to us. So that's the second set of key phrases. The key to China's success I want to share with you. Third, objectives for the future and Chinese modernization. The Party Congress has noted that from this day forward, the central task of the Communist Party of China will be to lead all Chinese people in a concerted effort to to realize the second centenary goal, and that is to build China into a great modern socialist country in all respects, and to advance national rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts through a Chinese path to modernization. Now, to this end, we must have adopted a two-step strategic plan. The first step, to basically realize socialist modernization from 2020 through 2035. The second step, to build China into a great modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful from 2035 through the middle of this century. The next 5 years will be absolutely crucial for us to get our efforts to build a modern socialist country in all respects, off to a good start. Major objectives and tasks for this period include the following. Make breakthroughs in promoting high-quality economic development. That's our top priority. Make new strides in reform and opening up. Further enhance the institutions, standards, and procedures of the whole process, people's democracy. Enrich the intellectual and cultural lives of our people. Ensure personal income grows basically in step with economic growth. Substantially improve urban and rural living environments. Make notable progress in building a beautiful China. Further consolidate our national security. Further increase China's international standing and influence. Enable China to play an even greater role in global governance. The report has made it clear that China will follow a Chinese path to modernization in realizing the second centenary goal. It points out that the Chinese modernization share similar aspects with other countries. But in the meantime, it has its own distinctive features based on our national connections. First of all, we have a huge population, over 1.4 billion. And that is a number bigger than the population of all the developed countries combined. So you can imagine the magnitude of this modernization. It will take a long time. It will take a lot of hard work. So for this reason, we have to take steady and incremental steps in advancing China's modernization. Second, China strives to achieve common prosperity for all. So our modernization must fit the purpose of common prosperity, achieving common prosperity for all our people. We want to avoid social polarization. Third, China pursues both material and cultural ethical advancements. Because in some developed countries, culturally impoverishment is quite evident. So we have to avoid cultural impoverishment. Fourth, China promotes harmony between humanity and nature. Make sure that our modernization will not lead to ecological degradation. And fifth, it has to be green and sustainable. And fifth, China is committed to peaceful development. We follow a peaceful path, a path of peaceful development. The old path taken, by developed countries, certain developed countries, should not be repeated. Old path is full of war, plunder, and colonization. So it should be a new path, a path of peaceful development and sharing and cooperation with other countries. Now there are 193 members in the United Nations today. And there are only over 30 developed countries. So how can developing countries achieve modernization? This is actually a hugely important question of our times. Now, in our view, and through our own experience and practice, each and every country has to choose its own path of modernization based on its national convictions. We cannot simply copy and paste because it won't work. By all standards, the Chinese path to modernization is a great contribution to human progress. For such a huge country to achieve modernization itself is a contribution to humanity. And certainly it provides a new option, a new choice for human modernization. In my view, it will also lead the way for the healthy development of economic globalization. There's the third second key phrases I want to share. Fourth, high-quality development. The Congress has made overall strategic plans for the work of the party and the country on the new journey, covering, among others, economic development, science and technology, education, human resources, whole process people's democracy, law-based governance on all fronts, cultural development, people's well-being, ecological development, national security, defense and military, national reunification, foreign policy, and party building. The report highlights that to build a modern socialist country in all respects, we must first and foremost pursue high-quality development. Development remains the party's top priority in governing and rejuvenating China. It is important that we fully and faithfully apply the new development philosophy on all fronts, continuing reforms to develop the socialist market economy, promote high-standard opening up, and accelerate efforts to foster a new pattern of development that is focused on the domestic economy and features positive interplay between domestic and international economic flows. We will make sure that our implementation of the strategy to expand domestic demand is integrated with deepening supply-side structural reform. We will move faster to build a modernized economy, raise productivity, and make China's industrial and supply chains more resilient and secure because they are closely connected with the world. In doing so, we also provide good opportunities for other countries. We will promote integrated urban-rural development and coordinated regional development so as to upgrade and expand China's economic output. The report reiterates that we must unswervingly consolidate and develop the public sector and also unswervingly encourage, support, and guide the development of the non-public sector. So to unswervingly support and encourage. We will see to it that the market plays the decisive role in resource allocation, and the government better plays its role. These principles have been highly stable and consistent, actually. That's the fourth sector key phrases I want to share with you. Fifth, peace and cooperation. The Party Congress has pointed out the way forward for China's foreign policy on the new journey, stressing that China will continue to follow the path of peaceful development and uphold opening up and cooperation with the outside world. Actually, one of the major principles of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for the new era has been, we must maintain a global vision. The Communist Party of China is dedicated to pursuing happiness for the Chinese people and the rejuvenation of China. But in the meantime, it is also dedicated to promoting human progress and world harmony. This is what we have said, and this is what we have been doing. Over the past 10 years, China has followed major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics on all fronts. And you have been seeing China has been playing an unprecedented, active and positive role in the world. I can give you some examples. China has become a major trading partner for more than 140 countries and regions. It is a major destination for global investment and a leading country in outbound investment as well. China has sent more peacekeepers than any other permanent members of the UN Security Council. China has always been, respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries, standing for peaceful resolution of international disputes, championing the UN Charter and the UN system. According to the latest World Report, between 2013 and 2021, China has contributed an average of 38.6% of global economic growth, more than that of the G7 countries combined. And the Belt and Road Initiative has attracted the active participation of more than 180 countries and international organizations, generating tangible benefits to the people along the routes. Since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, we have provided over 2.2 billion doses of vaccines to more than 120 countries and international organizations. And we are continuing to do so. On the new journey, China will remain dedicated to peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit. We will continue to promote world peace and development and to work closely with other countries to build a human community with a shared future. We will continue to follow an independent foreign policy of peace, uphold basic norms of international relations, and defend international fairness and justice. We will continue to develop friendship and cooperation with all countries on the basis of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and broaden the convergence of interests with other countries. Those initiatives proposed by President Xi Jinping, the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Belt and Road Initiative, will continue to be carried forward. We will uphold humanity's common values of peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedom, and actively participate in the reform and development of the global governance system. So those were the 5 sets of key phrases I want to share with you. Hopefully they will help you to capture the gist of the National Congress of the party. Ladies and gentlemen, what does the 20th National Congress mean for China's relations with Europe and the United Kingdom? I would say it means new opportunities for cooperation and new positive energies. Against the backdrop of global instability and uncertainty, China and Europe, as 2 major forces in the world, should uphold dialogue and cooperation, oppose division and confrontation, champion mutual benefits, reject decoupling or the disruption of global industrial supply chain. We should uphold multilateralism and reject unilateralism. As you know, there are upcoming high-level visits to Beijing by European leaders. Certainly, there will be good opportunities for China and Europe to explore new areas for cooperation and work together to promote world peace and stability. And by working together, China and Europe can certainly provide more positive energy for the world. The China-UK relationship is one of the most important bilateral relationships in the world. And you know, as a matter of fact, we are marking the 50th anniversary of ambassadorial diplomatic relations between our two countries this year. Look at the achievements we have made over the past 15 years. Two-way trade, two-way investment, educational cooperation, cultural exchanges, people-to-people exchanges. And we're working together to tackle climate change, the preservation of biodiversity. These cooperation exchanges certainly serve the benefits of the peoples of our two countries and beyond. And looking ahead, there are even more opportunities and space for us. I am so happy to see that, in spite of the surging pandemic and sluggish global economy, China-UK business ties have actually continued to grow. Last year, in the first half of this year, the two-way commodity trade exceeded $50 billion. By last August, the two-way investment stock reached $15.4 billion. I think this speaks volumes about the resilience and complementarity of this relationship. It also testifies to the strength and dynamism of the enterprises and companies of our two countries. People like you who are present here today. Now going forward, there's a lot more that can be done in practical cooperation between China and the UK. The two countries are well positioned to enhance exchanges and cooperation in trade, investment, renewable energy, financial service, education, science and technology, culture, climate response, and many others. China is also a highly innovative society right now. And as the second largest economy with a huge market, don't forget the middle income group is now over 400 million. And with the most comprehensive industrial chain, it offers good opportunities for practical cooperation. But more importantly, China has a strong leadership, strong political leadership, which provides predictable, consistent, and credible policies. All this means that China represents stability, certainty, and new opportunities for cooperation. In responding to COVID-19, China has put the people and their lives above all else. With a dynamic zero-COVID policy, we have made quick responses, targeted measures. We have protected the people's health and safety to the greatest extent possible, and maintained sustained and stable economic and social development. We are confident that the dawn of victory is just ahead of us. Last May, China launched a package of policies to stabilize the economy and put forward 33 measures on 6 fronts, including the financial sector. These policy measures have pushed China's economy back on the normal course and kept its major economic indicators within the appropriate range. The Chinese economy has great resilience, potential, and latitude. Its strong fundamentals will not change. and it will remain on a positive trajectory over the long term. China is committed to its fundamental policy of opening to the outside world and pursues a mutually beneficial strategy of opening up. We will promote high standard opening up, steadily expand institutional opening up with regard to rules, regulations, management, standards, and work to create a market-oriented, world-class business environment governed by a sound legal framework. Shortly after the opening of the Party Congress, China announced 15 policy measures to expand foreign capital and stabilize the FDI in the country, and issued the 2022 version of the catalog of encouraged foreign investment industries. China's high-quality development and high-standard opening up will certainly provide a sustained drive for global economic recovery. China continue to welcome more quality products and services from the UK. We will continue to provide facilitations to British businesses in pursuing cooperation with China. And we hope that the UK government will continue to follow the principle of free trade and WTO rules and work to maintain a fair, just, and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese businesses in the UK. For the UK, what China represents is the future and new opportunities. To view China as a threat is actually to lose touch with the reality, is to decouple with new opportunities. There is hope. Now, the UK has a new government, so it is hope that the UK side will work with the Chinese side in the same direction. And let's follow the principles of mutual respect and mutually benefit. Openness and inclusiveness. Focus on cooperation and manage our differences properly. And to make sure that this relationship will continue to grow on the right track. Ladies and gentlemen, the business communities of both countries have been an important and reliable driving force for China-UK relationship. I hope you will take this forum as an important opportunity to contribute your insight and strength to stronger practical cooperation in business and other areas between our two countries. Your contribution will go a long way to create more highlights in our bilateral relationship. And your efforts to promote the steady and sustained growth of China-UK relationships will bring even greater benefits to our two peoples. To conclude my remark, I wish this forum a full success. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for bringing us up to date and giving us a comprehensive overview of the Congress in Beijing. Now, I'd like to introduce today's second speaker, Sir Sherard Cooper-Coles, Chair of the China-Britain Business Council and Group Head of Public Affairs, HSB Holdings. Sir Sherard is a staunch promoter of the UK-China relationship and our long-standing partner. Sherard.
Excellency, Ambassador Zhang, my friend Wen Jian, my friend Stephen Perry, friends of China, friends of a sensible, grown-up, mutually beneficial economic, commercial and cultural relationship between China and the United Kingdom, Zhongguo and Yingguo. Thank you for coming together to celebrate that relationship and to move it together to new heights. It's so good to be back together, pointing in the same direction, working for common goals in the common interest. And thank you, Ambassador Zhang, not just for what you said about the great Congress which has just ended in Beijing and about the relationship between our two great countries, but also in your speech and in everything you and your team at the embassy do for the style and the courtesy with which you do it. It makes the job of all of us, Stephen, the Great Britain China Centre, all of us who believe in this relationship, so much easier because of not just what you say and what you do, but how you say it and how you do it, with respect and courtesy and quiet logic. And ladies and gentlemen, that logic is unanswerable. China is not just a great and ancient civilization. It is a power and innovator of the 21st century. When our transatlantic friends worry about their intellectual property being stolen, they should go to Shanghai, to Shenzhen, to Beijing, and see how so many of the technologies of the 21st century are Chinese. And I don't just mean the BYD buses that go past my front door every day. China is the economic power of the future, as the ambassador said. And we in Britain would be quite mad to decouple from that great power. Research commissioned by the China-Britain Business Council shows that nearly 150,000 jobs across the regions and nations of this united but troubled kingdom are attributable to trade with China. There are over 800 Chinese-owned companies trading in this country, employing more than 75,000 people. Over the past 2 decades, British exports to China have grown by more than 900%, while Chinese exports to the United Kingdom have grown by only 892%. For some strange reason, the 500 million middle-class Chinese consumers who like Peppa Pig and the Premier League want to buy Range Rovers manufactured in Solihull, Burberry coats woven in South Yorkshire, Scotch whisky distilled in our beloved Highlands, salmon raised in the farms of the lochs of Western Scotland. They want to eat shortbread and they want to buy British. And we need, ladies and gentlemen, to be part of that great commercial flow in both directions. And as our Chief Executive, Andrew Seaton, and I travel around the United Kingdom, from Sunderland to Surrey, we see the fruits of that commercial relationship, whether it's battery manufacturing or video game rendering, Chinese investment, exports to China from a jukebox manufacturer in Leeds, a small cosmetic startup in Nottingham. Their lives, their livelihoods, their fortunes transformed by the great markets, the great and sophisticated markets of China. So our two countries have so much to offer each other, and I'm so proud to head the Business Council with its 500 members, its 70-year history, that has been the vehicle and the vector and the voice for that great relationship. I could go on and on, turning out the statistics, celebrating the relationship, but I'm not going to. What I want is this meeting today, this coalition of economic, commercial, and cultural common sense, this Congress of UK-China commerce, to go out from here and make the argument to those for whom ideology and ignorance are more important than the jobs and welfare of our two peoples. Go out from here and make the argument that good jobs, good livelihoods for the people of China, for the people of Britain, depend on trade. Open, fair trade in line with the principles of Ricardo, where comparative advantage sees things made in Scotland that can't be properly made in China, and things manufactured in China that can't be efficiently manufactured in the United Kingdom. There is, of course, just one exception to that, because we're so proud that the leading Baijiu label, Shui Jing Fang, is now British owned. Drink your heart out, Ambassador. But thank you all for coming. Thank you, Wenjian, for organising this great celebration. And let's keep the faith and make the argument for the mutual benefit of our two people. Because in the end, it's about people, trade. It's about welfare. And as the Ambassador said, it's about human happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Sherrod, for putting the case so succinctly as to why China and UK should trade together and extend their development. There is a lot to do. Thank you. I'd now like to give a very warm welcome to Stephen Perry, Chairman of the 48 Group Club, a London-based non-profit organisation dedicated to promoting trade between China and the United Kingdom. Stephen.
First times I think I bowed to a meeting, and it's quite a pleasant experience. Ambassador, what a speech. For many of my friends who I tried to explain what China is, your speech is of course by Sherrod just now, but your speech in particular went through the whole range of the significance of China to the United Kingdom over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You expressed it so clearly and so well. And for those of us who try to do it UK to UK, we cannot match the depth and the importance of what you had to say. Thank you so much for the time you took in writing that and in delivering it. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. As Sherrod said, to our friend Wenjian, we thank you for this opportunity to bring together 300 people to talk about and listen to what is happening in China and what is possibly going to happen between Britain and China. And you've led CCC now for that amount of time that we can see today the culmination of your skills of bringing together the different companies of China into a coherent message to the British business sector, which is we're here, we're going to be here, and we're your friends. Thank you very much indeed for that. Sherrod, I remember when we first met, must be 30 years ago now, and I looked across the table and I thought, that's an unusual set of phrases I just heard. And I thought then that you were somebody of great distinction and great analysis of the different phases of history of our country, but also a great understanding of the potential of China. And today, in what you just said, it moved me greatly. And I thought of people like my father who made such a contribution to UK-China relations, and you're right up there, Sherrod. You get it, you understand it. There are aspects of our relationship, Ambassador, which maybe are not consistent with each other in every regard. What Sherrod said was, we would be crazy as a country to cut ourselves off from this incredible development which you are working on in China. And I support everything that Sherard said. Wish I could say it as eloquently as he said it and as clearly as he said it. Thank you very much indeed, Sherard. As usual, I write a speech. And as usual, I will not deliver that speech. I suppose I look for inspiration from what has been said today. And as I was sitting there listening to you, Ambassador, and to Sherard, and to Wen Jian, I thought to myself, there's not a great deal I can add. They've all said all the important messages that need to be delivered. And as I sat here together today, my son is here, Jack Perry, carries the name of my father, we both realize what a great perception he had 70 years ago when he understood the importance to found a company to begin the restoration of trade between Britain and China. There were other companies working at that time, but he managed to deliver a great resurrection of the businesses that had been flowing between Britain and China for many decades before the arrival of the People's Republic of China. The British were, as was said, the first, I think, European country to recognize the PRC in 1950, and the work that he developed, the idea for happening from 1952 onwards, was to rebuild the leading position of the UK with China. They faced difficulties at that time. The Korean War was happening, and there was a lot of tension between West and East. And for the UK it was a difficult time because not only did we feel our loyalty to our allies, we also felt a great kinship with the country that we had developed close relationships for many decades. In the years that followed, their attitude of believing that the relationship between Britain and China would be important to the UK was shown to be correct, and trade and relations developed. And we all remember when in 1986 our Queen visited China and had a most interesting and fascinating visit, which probably had eluded, I think it was George III, some 200 or 300 years before. It was a significant moment in Sino-British relations. As we look today at the difficulties that beset us in the relationship, I think the words of Sherard will ring out long from today, that we would be foolish to look away from the reality that what underpins the income of our people is our businesses. If our businesses are successful, we can have the growth that Liz Truss talked about. If our businesses are not successful, it will be very difficult to get that growth. And if you look at the world's growth over the last 10, 20 years, China has accounted for over 30% of world growth. It is important and vital to the British people, not just British businesses, that we as a country engage with China and do business with China. Nothing could have made it more clear to all of us today than the Ambassador's presentation of where China is going and what it prioritizes. If we want to be successful as a country, if we want to be global Britain, we will take one thing as absolutely clear from what the Ambassador said, which he didn't actually say, which is that Asia is likely to be the most important continent in the next 50 to 100 years in this world. It is more than 50% of the world's population. It is the countries from Saudi Arabia to Japan. It is the most amazing collection of countries who, under China's leadership, I would say, are coming together to form a continent where transnational infrastructure, transnational markets, transnational trade are becoming a feature while we try in Europe and North America to understand what that could mean. We can work so effectively with the China of the next 20, 30, 40 years. And when I think about that, I think of the great dedication of my father and his colleagues in the early 50s who were prepared to go against the tide. Because to some extent, that's what Sherard did today. He went against some of the tide. But actually, Sherard, you spoke in accordance with the tide. We want the jobs, we want the work, we want the opportunities to work together with China. And what you said will ring out long and for many of us in the future. Ambassador, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back quickly to give us the report. And thank you, Wen Jian, for building such an effective organisation that we can all support. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Stephen, for those kind words and supportive words of the Ambassador and Cheryl. Now, the Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, has to leave, so may I suggest that we all give him a good round of applause as so can I suggest we have a break for 15 minutes and we're back here at 4:30. Thank you. My friend, Chairman Wang Wenjian, will now give us a brief overview of the contribution made by Chinese companies in the UK in the recent years to the development within the regions of the UK and the UK's pursuit of the net zero target.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And it's me again. And you have to bear with me for a few more minutes before you watch our excellent panel discussions. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this event so far. I can see people are very excitedly connecting to each other during the tea time. That's great, marvelous. That's what we really want to see today. And many thanks again, of course, to the Ambassador Chen, Chairman Paris, Shera, and for their wonderful speeches and for sharing with us their insightful thoughts and views. The Ambassador's speech has given us great confidence that China's new era, a new journey, will present us with tremendous opportunities to pursue peace, development and prosperity, as well as offering us direction on how to work together to tackle some of the biggest challenges we are faced with today. Now we're going to turn our attention to two of those challenges in our panels today. For the first panel, we will take a deep dive into how we can build common prosperity or level up our societies, encouraging greater equality of opportunity through economic development. I know that earlier this year, the British government published its Levelling Up white paper, setting out a point to revitalising investment in all kinds of capital in those parts of the UK that have left behind, as London and South East have forged ahead. The Chinese government is also placing strong emphasis on similar themes, as you have heard from the Ambassador, that China is also striving to create common prosperity for its people by spreading wealth and opportunity more equitably across society. This provides further potential for wider strategic collaboration between our two countries, including upgrading industry and infrastructure and upskilling regional workforces. The Chinese business community is already making significant contributions, not only in London and the South East, but also in the north of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. We expect this pioneering agenda to open up a range of opportunities for win-win cooperation between Chinese investors and local partners. Moving on to our second panel, there can be nothing closer to the hearts of the people gathered in this room today than our collective future of this planet. We will discuss the actions we all need to take to tackle climate change and move our economies towards net zero. Recalling what has been achieved in COP26 last year in Glasgow and looking forward to COP27, we know our mission is far from being accomplished. We look forward to joining hands with all of you to further our collective endeavours. President Xi delivered a very clear message in his work report at the recent, closed, 20th CPC National Congress that China prioritizes environmental protection and promoting green lifestyles. He said, harmony with nature is a key feature of Chinese modernization, because the ambassador mentioned Chinese modernization. There are many features of Chinese modernization. Harmony with nature is a key feature of it. And reiterated that the country should take a proactive and steady approach to decarbonization, highlighting the importance of establishing new energy capacity first, before reducing total carbon emission and fossil fuel consumption. I'm also very glad to learn that at yesterday's Green Trade and Investment Expo, hosted by the UK government in Gateshead, North East England, the Trade Secretary called for investment in clean energy. Quote, now is the time to future-proof our economy by investing in cutting-edge green technology, protecting our long-term energy security, and creating thousands of jobs in industries of the future, unquote. She is expecting an unprecedented 100 billion of private sector investment by 2030, and by 2050, 1.4 million green jobs could be generated across the UK. I'm also particularly pleased to convey another important message from the Expo in Gateshead, addressed to us here today at our forum from the Department of International Trade. Quote, as the fifth largest trading partner for the UK, our economic relationship continues to be of key importance, and we are working actively to support trade and investment across numerous sectors, unquote. That's a message from DIT for our forum today. I'm also pleased to report that a number of our members were also able to meet directly and engage with the Secretary of Trade, with the Secretary for Trade and the Minister for Climate in Gateshead yesterday. Chinese firms in the UK are responding positively and proactively to the net zero agenda and prioritizing green development in our business strategies. In fact, we have already become one of the driving forces behind many vital green, low-carbon and environmentally friendly projects in the UK. And CCC UK's members, such as the China Huanan Group, BYD, not BWD, BYD, and Jile Holding Group, Envision Group, etc., are all actively operating in the UK in the critical areas of renewable energy, including wind power and PV, battery research and energy storage. We are looking to harness the power of our most advanced technologies, products, experiences, talents and capital to help accelerate the net zero transition here in the UK. However, in order to achieve all of this, both sides need to show resolve, wisdom and even imagination so as to overcome any obstacles and deliver concrete achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, about 1,000 years ago, the famous Chinese writer Su Shi told us, opportunity may knock just once, grab it before it slips away. In Chinese we say, 来而不可施者时也，到而不可施者进也. This also echoes the Western saying, opportunities are like sunrises, and if you wait too long, you miss them. So it has become extremely critical that we all adopt an open and pragmatic mindset to take robust and swift action to grasp these once-in-lifetime opportunities and to create mutual benefits for our two peoples and societies. It is my sincere hope that this forum will serve as a platform for dialogue, debate, and identifying solutions in the spirit of an enduring and deep friendship between our two nations. We will contribute in a meaningful way to improving life for all our citizens. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Wenjian, for the introduction to our next session in terms of opportunities. The sun isn't glaring in here, but it's nice and bright in terms of what we're talking about, in terms of UK-China trade. So, if I can now invite Dr. Yao to the stage with his colleagues, please, who are going to set the first panel. regional strategies and opportunities across the UK. Dr. Yang is the founder and managing director of Q Energy, a leading AI-based EdTech company based in Manchester, with a vision to accelerate the transition to net zero carbon future. He has extensive knowledge and experience on innovations in smart cities and IoT technologies. And with that, over to you.
Businesses in terms of the challenges we're facing and also the opportunities we can grasp. No further ado, I want to quickly introduce our guests to you. We've got Roger Adams, who is the Global Director from RSK. We've got Carol Yan, who is the Managing Director of the PowerLink UK, based in Leeds. We've got Tim Hawkins, who is looking after the Manchester Air Groups in terms of the CSR, public affairs, and communications. And last but not least, we got Andy Burwell, who is the International Director of CDI. I would like maybe all the guests to have a quick introduction about who they are and also the companies that they represent. Maybe we can start from Roger first.
Thank you. RSK is the largest privately owned environmental-driven company in the world. We have the largest ESG loan in the world. Our core business is environmental impact assessments, and we employ about 13,000 people across the world. We have presence in 40 countries, including Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia. My job within the company is to identify areas of the world where the environment and their growth are becoming harmonized. No one can drive growth without thinking perhaps downstream to their customers and how they're becoming increasingly aware of what they're consuming costs the environment. So our role very much is on top of that, and in particular also we have water specialist companies that look to drive innovation and productivity in the clean water sector across the world. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Carrie and General Manager of PowerLink UK. PowerLink is a group company, and our head office is in China, Shanghai. For PowerLink Group, we have two factories. One is in Shanghai, one is in UK, and we have 3 warehouses in different countries, in Australia, in Indonesia, in America. And also we have over 100 agents all over the world. We manufacturing the generators, include diesel, gas, biogas, CHP, landfill gas, and also we have hybrid products. For PowerLink UK, we established in 2010, and we're based in Leeds. So, as a successful branch of our PowerLink Group, we have a lot of recent years. We begin to push in the green energy. We have a lot of successful cases around UK, especially in North Yorkshire. Like landfill gas projects, like biogas projects. So, this is PowerLink. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tim Hawkins. I'm the Chief of Staff at the Manchester Airports Group, as well as Manchester Airport, which is the global hub for the North. We also operate East Midlands Airport, which is the UK's largest dedicated freight airport. And also London Stansted, which serves Cambridge, the east of England, and London. And together those airports in the last year before COVID handled 62 million passengers and generated economic value of around £8 billion. MAG is really proud to have been the airport partner in delivering the first direct service from the UK outside London to China back in 2016 with Hainan Airlines, when we connected Manchester and Beijing for the first time. We're also proud JV partners with BCEG on the Airport City project in Manchester. So I'm very privileged and very honoured to be at the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Andy Burwell. I'm the International Director at the Confederation of British Industries. For those of you who don't know the CBI, we are the preeminent business organisation in the UK. We represent 190,000 businesses of all shapes and all sizes up and down the UK. It's about a third of the working population of the UK. We have offices, regional offices in 14 regions in the UK, including the developed nations, also international offices, and importantly, a team in China who've been there for over 15 years. We have a very long, deep relationship with China. Many of our members have done. And we work very closely with the likes of CBBC and other organisations to further the relationship. So it's delighted to be here.
Thanks, Andy. Great, thank you all. I think we have a great combination of guests here. We have the Chinese company already investing in the north of England. We've got a big group company who has over 150 SME businesses across the UK. We have one of the biggest enterprise in the north, in the Manchester Airport Group, and obviously we have the organisation represents over 190,000 businesses across the UK. So I'm quite looking forward to the insights they're going to share with us. As we all know, for decades, there's inequality between the south and north of China, of the UK. Well, similar thing on China as well, I think, but that's a different topic. There are historical reasons, but we're not here to debate that. I think one of the message I want to say, or the point I want to make here, is that from the policy maker's perspective, I think there's a continuous policy on trying to change or reduce the gap between the south and north. I mean, we have the efforts of the high-speed train 2. We have the efforts of devolution. So we have more and more local leaders to be given the leadership and to make a decision quicker. And we have different names being called. Like years ago, we have the Northern Powerhouse Initiative, and nowadays we've got the leveling up policy. Which is a comprehensive set of policies and objectives that we need to achieve. I think talking about here, I want to open the conversation and discussion by asking our guests the first question, that is, what opportunities that do you think the UK government's leveling up policy has already brought it to your company's development in the regional economy? I don't know whether Carol wants to take that question first.
Okay, yeah. For this one, for leveling up, actually, when Dr. Yao asked me that question, I just thinking about it. Last year, actually, exactly cases. Last year, we are selling one power emergency equipment to York, because we're based in Leeds, it's near York here, in York Hospital. And that project actually is under leveling up policy. That one is exactly cases for leveling up benefit to our company. And also recently, we are planning to extend our factory in UK. We are beginning to try to find suitable land for us. And we pass the information to different organizations, also pass to the UK government. The information we got is in Liverpool now is very, they have a free zone policy coming for us, it's very suitable for us, that policy. Actually, we do a lot of import-export. For our company, net 5% of our business actually is export. We manufacture in the UK and then we export to different countries, mainly like Africa, Europe, and also to part of Asia. So we discuss with the government a lot. They pass us a lot of information, and also we find out that policy is also under leveling up that paper policy. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's good to know that. Tim, do you want to add into this question?
Yeah, you've already mentioned the two projects, the HS2 and Northern Powerhouse Rail, that really stand out for me as the opportunities that we have as an organisation. I think, although they're very long-term projects, actually they will have a profound impact on the economic performance of the North. Which I think, when you look at it from a global perspective, if the North operated as a single economy, it would be about the 20th biggest economy in the world. So I think that highlights the need for it to be interconnected, the major population centres to be connected to each other, but also from our perspective as an airport operator, an operator of the main international airport in the North, is for those population centres to also be connected to that global gateway. So we are at the front of that conversation, not only because we want to see the northern economy grow and for that to benefit us through increased air travel, but also because we have at the intersection of HS2 running north-south between London and Manchester, and Northern Powerhouse Rail that runs from Liverpool across to Leeds and beyond, is that the airport is at the intersection of those two and will be served by both of those new rail services. So the potential is huge for us in terms of reach into our catchments and our ability to work with airlines to put on new routes and services. They will look at the catchment that they're able to serve, that they're able to reach, and actually both of those services, but particularly Northern Powerhouse Rail, will have a profound impact on our ability to reach Liverpool in 20 minutes and potentially Leeds in just over half an hour and onwards into the rest of the north of England. So we're very excited, very focused by that project. It's hard work, it's a long-term project, but the benefits when they come will be very, very significant.
Great. Roger, do you want to share a bit from RST's perspective of the opportunity being captured?
Yes, the levelling up white paper, which we've probably all read in its fullness of 651 pages, but it sets out a wonderful route map for all governments really as they change. That money has to be spent across the board. RSK see most parts of that when projects start. It often involves a survey of the ground and the land and people and animals around it. And it goes right through that sort of journey of construction. So we regularly see it. And we also see the unlocking of much larger developments by key changes in infrastructure, be it a movement of a roundabout or a building of a bridge. And I think that exemplifies what the levelling up programme should be, that firstly it's maintained, it doesn't just disappear or become something else. It is still targeted to unlock much bigger developments, not to be seen in itself as a large lump of money looking for a home, but instead, to enable that ratcheting effect of spending £1 to open up £4 or £5 of revenue. So I think it's been an excellent stepping stone, and I can see already that that has affected the other panelists.
Great, thanks, Roger. I think it's good that we already seen some of the opportunities and projects being captured by the companies. But this also leads to my next question that, according to I think this question probably more for Andy to answer. According to the latest CCC UK survey, there's many Chinese companies here actually have limited knowledge of the leveling up policy, and they don't have, they don't know where to find the information or the support. So I don't know whether Andy, you can share a bit more from that angle for how they can find the support they need.
I think there's many British companies who are also asking those same sort of questions and also kind of searching for a bit of clarity. I think obviously there are organisations such as ours, such as CBBC and others, where the Chinese companies can go to for clarification on many things and many policies in the UK. I think there is an onus on the government to turn, which was an excellent white paper, into implementation. And we have seen it on some of the longer term projects, HS2 probably the best example, but there are many areas where the government has made strategic imperatives or have made decisions, but actually implementation hasn't quite followed through. And I think that's where we as CBI are really kind of looking for greater clarity, and where Chinese companies will as well. I think a great example of this is on the theme of sustainability. Yesterday CBI launched its Humber vision for 2030, which is really around transforming the Humber into a sustainable cluster and a plan for decarbonising the Humber. Those sort of implementations of a strategic vision and a plan with industry and government working together to actually realise some growth for industry, which then transforms the economy. That's when Chinese companies can have the clarity, the certainty to actually invest, to look for partnerships, to look for opportunities, and to collaborate. So for me, it's about that implementation. Obviously, there is a pathway to identifying greater understanding through organisations such as ours.
Thanks, Andy, for the sharing. Now talking about these opportunities, in terms of the levelling up policy, I think one of the important area would be on the fundings and the investment. The UK government has already providing a range of different funding schemes. We've got 4.8 billion on the levelling up fund. We've got another 2.6 billion on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. I think I'm asking probably a bit of an obvious question, but I want to bring that out to the audience and to the guests. On the other hand, we've got UK funding and investment coming in, but on the other hand, how important do you think it is for the regions to attract foreign investment? And also how the Chinese companies or enterprises is able to actually benefit from investing into the regions. This obviously is an open question. I don't know who wants to take it first.
I don't mind going first. This might be a theme. So I think on the funding pots, again, there's some big figures out there. I think the implementation hasn't necessarily kind of come through. I do think this question about devolution to the regions and about empowering regional mayors and regional bodies, miners I think are in the room, a really good example of that is a key question. Because actually how the funding flows from central government through local government into industry unlocks private sector capital as a multiplier, I think is a really important question. And I don't think we are going to achieve our levelling up aims without harnessing that local expertise, that local knowledge, that kind of localisation of national policy. So I think that's the kind of key question for me, but also how potentially industry are going to kind of leverage and access that capital.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Tim?
Yeah, I think you would be forgiven if you followed these things for thinking that a project like Northern Powerhouse Rail had been decided possibly as much as 10 years ago. and it's been redecided and reviewed and redecided a number of times. And at a policy level, that creates a delay, a lag in terms of those projects moving forward to the point at which the private sector can properly engage with them, that they become a proposition, an investable proposition that the private sector can help move forward at pace. We do have a habit of taking a long time at the policy stage and the decision-making stage, and I think actually greater involvement in those early stages from the private sector would help shape the schemes, shape the investment, and actually probably help reduce costs and reduce time for delivery. And I would certainly hope that Chinese companies would be in a position to help deliver some of the skills and expertise needed to accelerate the delivery of something like Northern Powerhouse Rail, and reduce its costs and bring those benefits of those schemes much earlier.
Great, thanks. Anything else? I mean, Roger, do you want to add anything?
Just a simple comment. It is about clarity. I was very surprised in the last few days to be unable to find information on the Levelling Up Fund. I do have a list here of, well, with my scribbles on it as well, but 105 schemes that were awarded in the first round, which comes to 1.7 billion of your 2.6. So these aren't schemes that I can see the Chinese, with the scale of your capital and your expertise in manufacturing, I can't see them being critical as such. You know, and if you look over them, these are facilitating schemes to look over them at the actual areas that they're directed at, as areas would be great too if you could focus on. And then there are far more and far more challenging schemes for you at your sort of scale. But to use these as a signpost, perhaps, as to where we'd like you to be.
Very interesting. Through these figures, I think out of these 105 schemes, I think many of them has been awarded to the kind of a public sector, in the sense that local councils. So there's a lot of the schemes being led at the local councils. I think one of the takeaways could be that the Chinese enterprises and companies to maybe working more closely or being disseminated in the way that they get the information, and then to be able to participate into some of these kind of projects and opportunities. Thanks. And then going a bit deeper, following in our funding and investment question, that there's also some statistics shows that there's a great deal of interest from the Chinese companies in investing in the green energy, the infrastructure, the transportation and the logistic areas in the regional level. So I think this is another question, I think, for all the guests to answer, in the sense that within these four kind of a more specific areas, do you see the challenges, or do you see how the British government or the local regional government can open up to the foreign investment, the Chinese companies to participate into these kind of schemes? Roger, you want to go first?
Again, clarity. Chinese investment must be absolutely welcomed, and we should all be extremely complimented that they even want to invest in the UK. It's, that's the number one thing. Number two, as a response to that, we should give you absolute clarity on what you can invest in, and that isn't going to be rebuffed or diluted over years. My own interest in green energy, I can see numerous places and sectors for you to invest in, and even when we're talking about the north, as an example, the geothermal opportunity there is substantial, and lying under Stoke and lying under Hull. are two enormous heat sinks in the Permian sandstones. What an amazing scaled investment that would be for you guys. So I think, number one, the government have to be clear, very much so, on what you can invest in so that we can focus on that and look for scaled schemes.
Thanks, Roger. Tim, you want to?
Yeah, I would highlight new air services and try to think of them as economic infrastructure assets connecting population centres in different countries, and like bridges and roads, they connect places and they allow trade, cultural exchange, social development, all of those things. And actually we spend a lot of time talking about roads and rail and those things, but actually the work we did leading up to the start of the Hainan route to Beijing from Manchester, I think demonstrated that governments have a role to play in supporting airlines in investing in those new routes, and that is a major start-up investment to start a new route like that in terms of marketing, customer awareness, and building patronage of those services. And I think we demonstrated that governments can play a really important role in supporting that, and that was successful actually in securing a route from Manchester to Shanghai that was due to start in March 2020, but didn't start for obvious reasons. We want to get that back. We want to get the Hainan service back to the level of frequency that we had before COVID. And we've seen the benefits of those services. We had a kind of rare opportunity because we didn't have services before the Beijing one. What actually the difference was before and after, and we could see the huge step up in terms of activity, economic activity, student activity, tourism into the north and between the north and China from the start of that service. It was an excellent case study that we did to show actually what international connectivity, what it does to catalyse those kinds of benefits. So we need to do more of that, and we'll be talking to our government and hopefully to the Chinese government about providing more support for those kinds of routes.
Great. And do you want to?
Yeah, just something to mind. So obviously the question was about investment into the UK. I think we should also think just about the bilateral trade relationship, because actually, if you look at the impact that our trading relationships had on the UK communities up and down the country, on SMEs and supply chains, on jobs and growth. I think as economic clusters develop in the green space in the UK, it's really important that they don't just look at the UK market. A successful cluster is an international cluster. And actually seeking the partnerships between China and the UK in these green industries as they grow, as they develop, and actually bringing the benefits to both economies will have knock-on effects. And things like transport hubs are essential to facilitate that. But actually we should be seeking to look at that sort of those sort of economic sectors, not just from a view of investment, but actually in view of collaboration and in view of building clusters that actually operate together.
Thanks, Andy. I think the message that I've gathered from the answers from the guests are that I think the Chinese companies are welcomed from the enterprise and from business perspective. There will be challenges, but more communication. Let's get together. Collaboration is the key element to bring things forward. Here I come to the next question, I think more for Carol to answer, in the sense that I want to ask, from the Chinese business perspective, as you're already invested in the UK, you've been operating quite successfly in the past few years. I want to ask you, what kind of support would you have been given, and also what would you like to have from the regional kind of a government, and then to support you to be more successful, to go further, and to invest more back into the regional economy?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, we set up our company here, and we got not a lot from the government, but recently a lot. At the beginning, yeah, because maybe because just we're not pass the information to the government. We just come here ourselves. And but recently, we passed the information to local government, told them we want to extend our factory, and the government is very respond very quick, and pass all the possibilities and give us all the information they can find, and make me feel thank you for all the things they do. And for the future, what we want get more from the government. Interested for us, and also
let's work together on that.
And also we hope the government can help us not only pass the information to us, also help us make that information working.
Thanks, Carol. I think I take it a quite positive message from one of the Chinese companies, and I think that hopefully will give more willingness of the Chinese companies to look at the opportunities outside of London, outside of the south of England, and I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunities out there. Here are all the questions we have. I think now we can open up to the audience for any questions that you have that you want to ask the guests. Please.
John Orchard from the think tank Hi, John Orchard from the CEO of OMFIF. I to ask the panel whether they thought there were lessons to be learned from China regarding regional development. We've heard today about how quickly China's grown over the last 20 years, and some of that I'm sure has got to do with the way that regional governments have worked with business. You think of perhaps Hangzhou and the tech sector. Is there anything that the UK could learn from the way that regional government works with business in China?
Thanks, John, for your question. I think this is one topic myself and Andy we just discussed. I think I'll let Andy to answer that question.
Yes, basically. So I think there are a few things on my mind. So one would be kind of clarity of mission for each region. I think I used to work for Foreign Office, working with Chinese companies looking towards the UK. The amount of times that you're looking to sell a proposition where our regions are competing with each other for a country our size is pretty ridiculous, if I'm honest. And I think something which many nations around the world do better than us, China included, is just having that clarity of pitch, I suppose, for each region, where its USPs lie, where the investment proposition is. So I think having that, but also then ensuring that the right infrastructure is wrapped around those propositions. And again, obviously, speaking of foreign prime ministers is generally a faux pas, but we'll hear now. I think the investment zones that Liz Truss was looking to provide, the little that was known about them, suggested that they were putting that sort of infrastructure around key economic zones in the UK. And I think actually that's a really important suggestion and idea to think about. Obviously the whole nation needs, but actually if we're going to make economic clusters like they do in China successful, then we need to ensure they have the right infrastructure and the right supporting mechanisms around it.
Thanks, Andy. That answers your question. Please.
Martin Parrow from the Jarvis Masterson Group. We've had a very long relationship with China. You talked about collaboration. I call it the need for tech. Teamwork, engagement, collaboration and harmony. Now what more? The whole world needs to work together on this, on all the kind of points that we've talked about, including, and the ambassador talked about harmony. So how, and of course, it's all going to be COP27 again, but how do we all work together better for the kind of objectives that we've all been talking about? Thank you.
Okay. Any of our guests want to take that question?
That is a huge question. From my part, mixing with global business, and only business, really, I find very few barriers and very few misinterpretations once you start talking, and once you get over, certainly from the UK, a press that can grossly misrepresent a country. And so I find that in business, there is very little lack of clarity. You all speak the same language, you understand each other, and after some initial toing and froing, you start really driving forward. This is a great example of it. And so I see it a lot, and I don't think that, as I say, in the actual business world, I think there is clarity. I think outside of that, and certainly in the UK, in the authorities, that's where it starts to fray at the edges a little bit. And so I think perhaps the press might look at global business a little more positively and a little less, we're angled on small detail that when you get there isn't apparent.
Anything want to add?
Yeah, very briefly from an aviation perspective, really encouraging agreement at ICAO just a few weeks ago towards a 2050 net zero goal, which all of the states signed up to. That goal, it could be interpreted at slightly different speeds, but actually in terms of expectations of what that assembly was going to agree between countries. I think there was some major risks that wouldn't get there. Actually, I think it's really positive in terms of collaboration towards net zero, towards growth and development, and actually countries are targeting the same thing. So from an aviation perspective, I think that's positive.
Hopefully the guests give you, it's a big question, but hopefully there's some answers in there. There are any other questions? Okay, good. All right, so I think that's everything we are here to discuss, and hopefully that provides some information or insight to the audience here. And obviously, any questions, you can always go to the guests later on to discuss. But thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Yao and the panel. Interesting, one of the comments that was made about the press and how it affects business. Notwithstanding everything that's been going on, whether if you look over the last 20 years, the ups and downs between the UK and China, our business has continued to grow. So it is business meets business. That is about what we're here for today. So that's a positive. Right, now it's time for our second panel, China-UK actions in pursuit of net zero. David Percival, MB, Chairman of the Manchester China Forum, will be moderating this. He is Managing Director of Deloitte for China, and he's committed to support the forum in its long-term commitment to UK-China commercial collaboration by focusing on increasing Greater Manchester's commercial connectivity with the country. His brief includes building effective relationships with senior figures and decision makers throughout China. Now, I'd like to ask David and his panel to come up, please, to the stage.
Thank you very much. You hear that? My journey with China started in around 2008. I was a British diplomat, commercial diplomat in around the time of World Expo, and then I moved over to Deloitte in 2012 and been leading a business development team in the UK-China corridor since. and it's been been proud to chair the Manchester China Forum, and I'm also very glad that Manchester's been so represented in the last panel and at the forum, so we're obviously doing something right. I think as we go on the global imperative of tackling climate change on the road to net zero, it's right in the UK-China trade and investment discussions that the road to net zero cuts across all that we do, and that we talk about it in every element of the engagement. And so with that in mind, it's great to have a very diverse panel, and I'll hand straight over to the panel to introduce themselves. Starting with Andrew, who's the founder and CEO of Sun.
Thank you so much. Is the mic on? Yeah, perfect. Great. So Sunam is a leader, maybe arguably the global leader, in very compact thermal storage. We're based out of Edinburgh. We're based out of a strong partnership with the University of Edinburgh. And we are challenged at the very beginning. The founding principle of the company is how can we drive decarbonisation through business? And we set out to solve the challenge of how do you displace the incumbency of the combi boiler. We decided that the key to that was a combination of heat pumps, many of which actually come from Chinese partners, and also our very compact thermal stores, which in a space kind of similar to a very slimline dishwasher, store the equivalent of a very large hot water tank. And that's our solution set. Maybe a bit more later as we go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Karina Fletcher is the Organisational Development Director at Lotus.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. I say my name is Karina. I work for Lotus. Many of you will know Lotus. We're a 75-year-old company next year, an iconic British sports car manufacturer. But in 2017, we became part of the Geely family when they acquired 51% of the business, the other 49% being owned by Etika from Malaysia. The group also owns Polestar, Volvo and Lynk & Co, so they're a strong player in the automotive industry. I've been with the company for 3 years, and when I joined for a few months on a short-term contract. But when you have the investment of a strong sponsor, and you're growing a company and bringing employment and growth to the UK and around the world, you can't help but get engaged in that journey and want to be part of it. And I just want to give you a few examples of the things that we're doing that have been a reflection of the investment that's been made in Lotus. We really are on an exciting transformation journey. We heard about transformation earlier, and we're definitely an example of that. In some ways, we're a 70-year-old startup because we're pretty much changing everything we've done, but keeping our core DNA as part of our overall package. So we're changing all of our products from combustion engines, internal combustion engines, to electric vehicles. We're moving our range of products from pure sports cars to sports cars and SUVs. This year we launched our last petrol car, the Lotus Emira, and we also launched our all-new electric hyper SUV, the Electra, and we've stopped production of our old models. We're growing from a relatively small company, around 1,000 people in Hethel over in Norfolk. Now we're a global company with sites, many sites in the UK, China, USA and throughout Europe. Our headcount has actually more than doubled in the last 3 years, and we're bringing together that traditional Lotus DNA and the new skills and capabilities we need for the future. Sports cars will continue to be designed and built in the UK, mainly at our factory in Hethel, and production will increase from around 1,000 vehicles a year last year to around 5,000 vehicles next year, and onwards and upwards from there, and that just shows the success of the path we're on. The SUVs will be built in our Lotus Technology factory in Wuhan, in China, where there's capacity for 150,000 vehicles. And having heard what we've heard this afternoon, I'm very hopeful that they won't be aspiring for a Range Rover, they'll be aspiring for a Lotus Electra in the future. We're also opening our first retail brand experience centre around the corner from here in Mayfair in the new year, so lots of change. As the OD Director, I'm responsible for talent acquisition, culture and engagement, learning and development, and our position on net zero and our actions to support the environment are absolutely critical to our employee value proposition and our people strategy. So I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you for the invitation to share some of our activities and hear what other people are doing.
Thank you very much. Manchester is, of course, twin with Wuhan, and we very much look forward to resuming visits to Wuhan, and we'll go and visit Lotus there. And finally, but no means least, Keith Martin, who's a Senior Vice President with the small piece that is PetroChina.
Oh, thank you. So I'm glad to bring some cultural diversity to the room, being from Liverpool. So quite close to Manchester, but definitely distinct. So what is PetroChina? It's part of a group. The group is CNBC. So to a lot of Chinese people in the room, you'll know very well what CNBC is. It's a cross between, I guess, from a UK perspective, a BP and a Centrica. So biggest gas importer into China, also massive in terms of oil and oil products. And it's currently embracing the energy transition with vigour. In terms of the UK operation, it's probably one of the biggest companies you've never really heard of. It has a significant stake in Grangemouth Refinery as part of a partnership with INEOS. It's been reliably supplying fuel for over 10 years. The business in the London office has grown rapidly in terms of products, bioproducts, LNG, gas, power and carbon. And it's braced for the energy transition. So an exciting time lies ahead, and I look forward to discussing that with you over the next half hour.
Thank you very much. The first question, we're going to look a little bit around the opportunity for the UK and China to collaborate on net zero. One of the things I commissioned from my work with Deloitte was a look at the opportunity around hydrogen between UK and China, and actually that's led to helped support an MOU signed between Manchester and Wuhan with the great support of the ambassador and his team and Mr. Fang's team at the Bank of China. We can see some real outcomes of that. And what we really learned from the research is that the need to bring together the academics, industry, the finances and the policy makers to figure out how we can actually collaborate together. And so sort of with that in mind, we'll explore some questions with our panel. And you have an interesting relationship with the University of Edinburgh. I just wondered if you could expand on that a little bit.
Sure. So our relationship with the University of Edinburgh is deep, it's knowledge-led, it's innovation-led, it's actually also very commercially led, and it's solved some incredibly deep problems in how do you stabilize a certain kind of energy storage material. It's really important if you want to build that kind of very compact thermal energy storage I was talking about earlier. But above all, actually it's people-led. We work very closely with Professor Colin Pullum, and who was his student and is now our head of materials, Dr. David Oliver. And I was struck in preparing today for the fact that actually maybe a third to a half of the significant people in developing our technology base are Chinese or Chinese origin. Dr. Xiaodan Hu, Xiaodan, I suppose, who was a master's student we sponsored, and then very instrumental in helping Colin and I in Guangzhou when we visited South China University of Technology and a number of local companies to help us really, be confident to go into the labs of those companies and work with them, explaining our technology, showing them how the technology worked, and really, being much more than a translator, a translation maybe in the scientific sense, moving technology from one party to another. Dr. Li Qianwei, who joined us from the University of Edinburgh, from materials science PhD, but then joined us to be a business developer. And actually in 2020, was already working with us for a couple of years from Edinburgh, went home to visit her parents in August of 2020, and then could never come back. And she hasn't been back since. So she's carried on working in China. We've been, amazingly delighted with the fact that she's been able to open incredible doors to work with, fantastic and major, unfortunately I can't name them, but name brand companies and in due course that will be very important. And there's many others who are deeply significant to us in our business. And so for us, our links to China, although we've been working persistently in China for more than half a decade, understanding that deep and abiding engagement is very important. It is probably critical to establishing good relationships. In the end, it's all about people, and those, many of them came through the University of Edinburgh relationship.
Thank you. So a great example of British University working with you and China to bring together commercial outcomes through a collaboration that actually clearly have a net zero element to it. Thank you very much. Keith, you have the big remit of looking after PetroChina's role, engagement with renewables and carbon outside of China. So could you give us some examples of how you're working in the UK?
Sure. So I think the energy transition is irresistible, and I think it comes in waves. So I think one of the first waves is the move from coal into gas, and I think this year China became the biggest LNG importer in the world, overtook Japan. So one of the things that we're doing is developing the gas infrastructure. Some of those cargoes this year have actually ended up in Europe to increase security of supply. I think historically the arrangement that we've had in Grangemouth has meant that most of Scotland, Ireland and Northern England has been reliably supplied for the last 10 years. But what we've also embraced, because we've been under the EU ETS system and now under the UK carbon scheme, is reduction in Scope 1 emissions directly by simply stopping certain activity, but also by transitioning into new activities which substantially reduces our carbon footprint. And the key question is, how have we done that? Through collaboration with local government, local businesses, entrepreneurs, and also national governments as well. And we've seen a significant fall in the amount of emissions that's come out of those activities. And I think what's really laudable is there's a passion, I think, from the people that work in our organisation, whether they're based in our Grangemouth business or whether they're based in London, to make more significant changes. Now, clearly there's an incentive to do that by those schemes. Every tonne of carbon saved means there's £70 plus that goes back into the business that can be redeployed in new technologies. The interesting thing to me is the range of opportunities that we have in front of us, and it's frankly endless, from reducing our carbon emissions in terms of direct Scope 1 to assisting our customers in terms of reducing Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions. So we can give some practical examples of that a little bit later, maybe in detail, about how we've grown our bio business, how we've grown our carbon business. But I think one thing that's absolutely clear, when President Xi 2 years ago at the UN conference made his declaration, it's in 2 stages to reduce carbon's footprint, it's been embraced in China, and now we feel that wave coming across our international business. And we feel a wave of support from China to enter into all these new initiatives to get to that new zero target. So as we go through in a little bit more detail later, I'll explain a bit more.
Thank you, that's exciting. It sounds like we need to take you on a regional tour to see what's going on across the UK, our regions and universities. Thank you. Karina, Andrew mentioned people, and of course that's the key element of everything we're doing. Could you perhaps explore a little bit how Lotus is tackling net zero within the organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think traditionally the automotive industry hasn't been seen as the most green or environmentally friendly sector. So we've decided to go out there and be really public and make our intentions in this area really clear. So as part of our Lotus Driving Change initiative, we've launched our ESG Charter this year. That's our Environmental, Social and Governance Charter. And our Lotus Technology Centre in China have an equivalent charter, which is very similar, just with some local variations. So we've committed that our mission is to lead our industry in minimising impact on our environment, benefiting society and the planet as a whole. We also recognise, however, that our customers and hopefully our new customers have a lot higher expectations, and they are looking for sustainable products. So there's a real strong commercial argument for being strong in this space too. As part of the Charter, we've publicly committed to becoming a net zero company, and we're doing that through science-based targets as defined by the World Resource Institute. We don't have our finalised targets yet. It's a process you go through to get fair and achievable targets, but as an example, Schroders have a SB target to reduce their greenhouse emissions by 46% as one of their targets, so we'll get some really clear deliverables that we'll be expected to meet. One of the things that we've said for Lotus to achieve these targets is that all of our new product launches from 2023 will be all electric vehicles. As I say, this year we had the Emira, that's our last petrol vehicle, but we already have the all-electric Avaya, our hypercar, and now the new Electra SUV, all-electric vehicle, so we're stood in good stead. There'll be new electric sports cars and new electric SUVs over the years to come. We're looking to ensure sustainability in the design of our products and how we create them, both from a materials and a supply chain perspective. So at the early stages of our planning, we're choosing sustainable materials and processes and ensuring we work with suppliers that do the same. Two very specific things we've done is to introduce solar panels at our site in Norwich, and that will provide 25% of our electricity, which is a great step forward. And we're also launching a new all-electric car scheme for our employees. And I think our employees are a really key part of this change. It's really important that they buy into what we're doing and help us to achieve our net zero goal. So communication is key, hence really going public with the ESG charter and sharing that internally will help drive the process and give everybody some really clear expectations.
Thank you. Well, that was a great journey. How wonderful to hear sort of how net zero has become sort of part of the beating pulse of Lotus. So it goes across, cuts across everything. That's a great example that we can share in the UK and China. So a question that sort of nuts and bolts question, to really move the dial on the UK relationship, the UK-China relationship in net zero. What could we be doing better? What could we, the UK, we, China, or our businesses be doing better? And Keith, I'll ask you to take that first.
Sure, I guess we've got to think about the size of the opportunity from a UK perspective, but also in China. If you take China's ambitious plan in terms of decarbonisation in those two stages, I think there's estimates that's between 17 and 23 trillion of investment opportunity that will become available. If you think the rest of the world will follow suit, the size of this market is absolutely amazing in terms of opportunities. I think what is going to be tremendously helpful if we look at where we are today, with all of the issues we have in Europe and the UK in particular around energy security, is a clear framework of investment, close collaboration with government, both national and local, to really encourage, stimulate that investment and give also a guarantee in terms of return. That way, when we're competing for capital, it's on a levelised basis, it gives assurance, and that will really allow us to drive the ambition that's clearly been set in terms of getting to the zero target.
Yeah, that resonates with the research we did with the lawyer, where it really showed the need for the finances to be in the room now with industry and academia to figure out bankable projects. So, yeah. Karina, what do you think we can do? You're doing very well as an executive.
I'm going to say, hopefully we're making a good start. You know, as I say, we are building facilities in China and in the UK, and with the shared ESG and the strategy, and we're able to work closely together to share knowledge and build best practice in a unified global strategy. I think it helps us to understand how and where we can achieve the best environmental outcome and align that to the right commercial product. My background's actually in strategic workforce planning from a people perspective, so looking at what I need to be building in my people today to deliver the business strategy of tomorrow. And I think that's the key. Bring your environmental planning further forward in the process when you're thinking about a new process, a new design, a new project, and look at all the options. Is there a different way of doing it? Is there a better way of doing it? Should you be buying? Should you be using a supplier that's got better transport and reducing your carbon footprint? By understanding the options, you can make the right decision on the product and the final version that we put together with.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. I will add one sort of ask myself. Is a clarity. Come up with the last panel. A clarity from our colleagues in governments in the UK go on how to engage commercially with China. I found in the research we did through there was a lot of misunderstanding on how to engage China, but nobody said do not engage China on climate change. So absolutely on this road we need sort of clarity on how to engage. The final of our questions. As business leaders, entrepreneur, can you give me a good example of one opportunity that you would like to explore in the UK-China corridor? And as our entrepreneur, I'll hand over to you.
Okay. I mean, we've got a simple belief, right, which is that the grid is going to be increasingly decarbonised by renewable electricity, wind, PV, other sources, maybe tidal energy, which is growing very fast out of EMET, for example, in Scotland. And we think that if the grid is going to be stable, and stability is important for society and for grids, then the heating, hot water and cooling in every building needs to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Right now, it comes on whenever people want, and people want that flexibility to choose when they demand comfort. But we can put batteries and heat pumps in between the grid and those services, and we can deliver heating, cooling and hot water that stabilizes grids and improves people's comfort and quality of life. And right now, in the UK we're doing that for social housing. In China we're doing it for the super luxury housing. If you go and look up China, the High Time project, for example, in Shanghai, our heat batteries are in there. I want to do it for every home in China. I want to do it for every home in the UK. And I want to do it for every home in the world. And when we've done that with our partners, not just alone, then I'll be happy.
Fantastic. It's great to think big, and Net Zero gives us the chance to think big. Perhaps with our colleagues at CCC UK, we can give you a platform to discuss that a little bit more. That would be quite exciting.
Awesome.
Keith, what one thing would you like to change?
Well, maybe explore. Maybe if we use an umbrella term, renewable, and it was interesting that the ambassador took that away as a key message in terms of the drive for renewables after the Party Congress, and then apply it in the UK context. And I think there's two types of renewable drive. There's electrification, and then there also is gas and liquids where electrification will reach. So if we just take maybe on the liquids and the gasification, then PetroChina's been listening to its customers, and customers have demanded green fuels. So if we take biofuels, that is a rapidly developing market in the UK and across Europe. And I'm glad to see that PetroChina has taken a lead role in that. We've got a significant market share, and we're doing it on a collaborative basis for all of our partners. We're building up the infrastructure, we're linking global businesses together from China, Americas and Europe, and we're really giving the customer what the customer deserves. So if you were to choose one kind of liquid form of renewable, that would be it. If we were then to look at how else we can impact our behaviours on what we do and how we can learn from each other. Obviously, Europe and the UK had great experience in carbon reduction, where the EU ETS drove behaviour, and the high price in the EU ETS led to direct abatement and also to changes in terms of products and what was done. China, as we know, is developing its carbon market, which I think this year has actually overtaken the EU ETS in terms of size and scale. But I think there's tremendous collaboration between carbon schemes in terms of what's taking place in the EU ETS, the UK system, what's taking place in China, and the growth in all of those international markets. And certainly I think in terms of PetroChina London, it's taken a leading role in pulling all of those businesses together, to give them those learnings across the business to prepare for the different types of carbon scheme that can happen. So ultimately we reduce our Scope 1 emissions, and we're better prepared by the voluntary market at the moment to reduce Scope 2 and 3 on the journey to that low transition economy and ultimately net zero.
it's just the kind of stories that in the UK-China engagement we need to be promoting more.
Yeah, if it may just say one thing in terms of the pushback from management, in terms of HQ in Beijing and local management here, it's not are we going to embrace the energy transition, it's more why aren't we doing it faster? So there's a real palpable appetite to make a change and to really get behind it, and it's amazing and pleasing to see.
Thank you very much. Karina, what would Lotus really like to focus on opportunity?
You mentioned earlier that we need clearer guidelines on how to engage with China on sustainability and the environment. For me, it feels like that's a safe space, and we've heard today a lot about how difficult it is to get investment and feel comfortable in the current political environment, but nobody can argue that we need to just protect our planet, and we can do that globally. The more companies, the more global companies that get SBTi targets and work together to achieve those targets, the more effective we'll be. I think one of my learnings from COVID, you saw in the UK, we forgot all about the competitiveness and that everybody needed to make money. It was about how do we get through this and how do we work together. As a country, we did that really well. We worked with our competitors, we worked across industry to find pumps and all sorts of things and vaccines. I don't think we did that globally, and I think if we can get some clear SBTi targets and have a clear way of assessing and measuring everybody in an equal way, and people buy into that, and then work together, on a simple scale. I order from Amazon probably 20 times a month, probably a bit more, and they come in 20 vans to my door in 20 different boxes. If as companies we got together and looked at our logistics, even small changes like that, making sure that all the flights, all the transport were maxed out, that the packaging was minimised, gathering things up, working differently, we could make a significant difference.
Exploring the supply chains post-COVID is very interesting and vital net zero opportunity. I think my opportunity is very specific because of what we've been doing in Manchester. The collaboration, the MOU that looks at Manchester's path into a hydrogen vehicles and the infrastructure needed to support that. And a Chinese partner, I think, could really help support and look at how that can be scaled up in the UK and in China. I think that's what China often brings to the opportunity, the ability to scale up at speed. And we really saw that from our research into hydrogen. And I hope the time we announce the next steps early next year, that will have happened. That was the last of our questions. So we've got about 10 minutes of questions from the floor, so if anybody would like to ask the panel a question, please go ahead. Gentleman there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Wright. I'd like to know if you could get a message across to businesses that have not yet started their net zero journey, what would it be? And how could you get that message across?
Companies that haven't started their net zero journey.
Their journey, yeah, to net zero.
Yeah. Andrew?
Just start. It's not too scary. It can be done. All the solutions are out there, right? It's just a question of implementing them.
Yeah, there is a lot of support out there to get going.
Yeah, I'd add, if you look at all the research, any customer, any company will be looking for this in their suppliers, looking for it in their products, so if you don't, you're going to be behind the curve.
Maybe I think in terms of the journey forward, I think net zero will be a must. It's not going to be an option. I think there's tremendous alignment between politicians and between people to drive this journey forward. I think it's interesting, we've seen obviously energy disruption caused by the Ukraine-Russian conflict and security of supply moving to be a #1 issue. Having said that, if you look at the price of carbon in the EU ETS and in the UK, it still remained massively high, 70 plus.
People can help you bring the additional rigor that goes along with it.
I kind of agree with that. I totally agree with that. I have no net zero background myself, but I kind of went on a journey with Deloitte's great help to understand the opportunity, and by no means an expert. On my word, there's some wonderful experts out there you can engage with. Next question.
Hello everyone, my name is Ian Zhu. I'm a China consultant of Guangzhou, UK. On behalf of Guangzhou, we are very grateful for this wonderful opportunity to be here today. So my question is, as you just mentioned, hydrogen as one of the very important clean energy resources plays a very important role in the carbon neutral and the net zero. And in terms of its application in industrial, residential, or infrastructure, or on the road in the UK, which area do you think may offer the most opportunities for Chinese investors or Chinese equipment providers in the hydrogen area? Thank you.
Sure. So I think, again, the journey to hydrogen is inevitable. I think the issue that we have is one of economics. Now, clearly, the recent shocks in the energy system, particularly in Europe and around the world, has driven commodity prices to historic highs. So gas prices are 10 times higher than they were before. Power prices 15 to 20 times higher than they were before. So the interesting thing is, will those prices calm down in the coming year or years? If so, then again, that might take away a little bit of that market-driven economic incentive to move to hydrogen. Having said that, I think governments want to see a change, and now governments are setting regulation, frameworks and direct support to enable the transition to hydrogen. Now, if we look around the world, different countries have really invested in different ways, and obviously industry lends itself best to hydrogen production, and also the invitation, at least at the moment from a UK perspective, and also Europe would lead, I think, to the most sensible economic way of developing this product at the moment. Clearly, hydrogen itself provides a challenge in the way it burns. As we know, natural gas burns smooth. Hydrogen is almost like an explosion. So you can only mix in the natural gas system maybe 5 to 15% hydrogen to natural gas, and then you've got to develop a different way of transporting hydrogen. So you've got a logistical issue, you've got an economic issue, but I see a will in the UK and I see a will in Europe to make this happen. And I think it's absolutely natural for China, given its massive evolution into renewables, which can produce massive amounts of hydrogen. A lot of it will be consumed in China for sure. I can see there'll be exports, and I can see there'll be a massive growth in hydrogen as a traded commodity. It may be limited at the moment, but if you look at the rapid expansion of LNG in China, I think you can see the same happening to hydrogen, and I think there'll be a rich trade in that. And I think the current LNG players, China being one, would be a natural person to do business with. So certainly we're watching and studying hydrogen with great interest at every part of the chain. And maybe just one last piece of good news, I think we see in some of the gas-fired generation that those gas-fired generators can actually take significantly more hydrogen as part of the mix than ever before, and that's a tremendous technological advancement, and if that happens it will really drive the use of hydrogen practically forward. So not just in industrial production, things like steel, but also in power production as well.
Thank you very much.
Could I give an overlay on that as well? I mean, I have a somewhat different approach to this. I think the only place that hydrogen really plays, but it plays big, is in industry, where hydrogen is already used. And if you want to make money in that space, invest in giant electrolyzers that can switch on and off very fast as variable renewable energy comes on and off in surplus, or gets constrained off and has surplus. I wouldn't be in anything else, honestly. I certainly wouldn't be in burning it for homes, because homes will be served better by heat pumps.
Certainly, in industry, the need to clean up the production of hydrogen already there. It's the massive road to net zero opportunity. So chemical production, agriculture as well, fertilizers. Yeah, absolutely. Next question. I think this will be the last one. We'll cover some of the final questions.
Thank you, Timsky. Very simple question. Sherrod, in his opening remarks, urged us all to take this tremendous message of cooperation with China outside of this room and beyond these walls. How do we turn up the volume on better communications about the great story so that we can engage more with the British public and start winning hearts and minds back?
I'll answer my opinion on that is, and I've spoken to the British Ambassador about this, is actually the story of what goes on between the UK and China in the regions is very important. And actually, in the Manchester China Forum, companies like Beijing Construction who built a local business and invested billions into the Manchester and local community. Those kind of stories are not headline making, but they're very important. And actually to get the message across of how that regional engagement with China is having real economic development opportunities for the UK and real support about our levelling up agenda and the net zero agenda, I think that's important. So to get the regional stories out and make sure that they're understood. Because the sum of the parts are very important.
Sometimes it's just telling the stories. I mean, our big story at COP26, which was, we're in Edinburgh, across in Glasgow was COP26. Our big story was the launch of our relationship with the company in Shanghai, Tumos. Announcing a £50 million deal. To us, that's pretty big. Some of you people, that would be really small, but to us, that was pretty big. And, we just tell the story. And we tell the story of our engagement. And I think if everybody's doing that, then those engagements they're real. And, those stories are the best stories. They're not fake.
Maybe just to add, I think a lot of the stories are just not promoted at all. Would you know that PetroChina London has a turnover of 70 billion? Would you know that PetroChina supplies reliably for the last 10 years, never missed a heartbeat in terms of all that product in Scotland, Northern England, Ireland? Would you know that PetroChina has one of the biggest energy portfolios in the world? Would you know that PetroChina invests in significant carbon reduction, or PetroChina London helped with the initial phases of the carbon scheme in China, providing expertise based on the EU ETS system? My guess is no, because it's not a Chinese way to brag or to boast, but to very much keep humble and to actually just get on and do the business. And it's only if you ask you get to find out. And it's like the research that I think some people have done, I'm sure, prior to this conference, if you would look at the size and the ambition of the carbon change in China alone, would you think that would amount to $17 to $23 trillion? It's amazing. But again, it's not bragged or talked about.
Yes, indeed.
Because the culture is humble. But I think you've got to somehow show to people the benefit. Because I think once you have China on your side and sending PetroChina for our commodities, you've got a reliable partner for life. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the point is we need to expand that beyond this room. Karina, would you like to put the Lotus marketing team to work on it?
It's a delicate situation, isn't it? Because I've told you how amazing the Junior Next Door investment has been for our organisation, but we don't shout it from the rooftops. Because we're busy doing what we're doing, hopefully the story will get out on its own, and that's coming to events like this and sharing the success. Other ways that we do that, it's partnership. It takes both sides, and both sides are working really hard to make it work, and that's what we need to focus on.
Thank you. It just remains to thank Chairman Plum and CCC UK for the opportunity, and thank the panel for their words of wisdom. Thank you very much.